Hi, my name's Eric. I'll be reading you selections from today's Cape Cod Times. Today's date is Monday, July 27th of 2026. We'll start with the weather, as we always do. Regular listeners know that we always start with that. Today, mostly sunny, a beautiful day, high of 77, a little more humid than it has been in the past, but not too bad. On tonight, looking for mainly clear skies, a low of 63. Tomorrow, Tuesday, humid with thunderstorms around in the afternoon, high of 75, a low of 65. On Wednesday, cloudy and humid with a shower and thunderstorm, a high of 75 and a low of 67. So a couple of wet days, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. A couple of afternoon showers, humid, high of 81, low of 66. Friday, partly sunny and humid, high of 82, a low of 67. So today is the best day of the weekdays to come this week, and I think you should be outside and feeling that sun on your face because it's a gorgeous day and it'll be a lot drier in terms of humidity than the rest of the week. The sun will rise at 5:31 a.m. today. It'll set at 8:04 p.m. We'll have 14 hours, 33 minutes of daylight. The moon will rise at 7:16 p.m. It'll set at 3:10 a.m. Heading to the front of the paper, where they used to keep the lottery results, and now they have given those up because it goes to press too early to get the latest lottery results. So, since somebody asked for those, we go to masslottery.com and give it to you from there. And here are the numbers for yesterday, Sunday, July 26th, of 2026 for the numbers game. The numbers were 7, 3, 0, 1. Again, yesterday's midday numbers game winners, 7, 3, 0, 1. In the evening, the winning numbers were 0, 3, 7, 0. Last night's numbers game results in the evening drawing, 0, 3, 7, 0. Mass Cash was drawn yesterday. Those winning numbers for the midday were 1, 17, 24, 27, and 31. Again, yesterday's midday winning numbers for Mass Cash, 1, 17, 24, 27, and 31. And last night's winning numbers for Mass Cash were 1, 3, 4, 5, 26. Last night's winning numbers for Mass Cash in the evening drawing, 1, 3, 4, 5, 26. Good luck to all who play. Remember us if you win. From the front page of today's Cape Cod Times, Mashpee's pickleball woes may end. We just need the noise to stop, by Rachel Devaney in Mashpee. As Ernie Barrows stood in his backyard on July 16th, a series of sharp, crisp pops echoed through a corridor of trees that connects his backyard to the town-owned Mashpee pickleball courts on Ashumet Road. "I've been enduring this noise almost nonstop for years now," said Barrows, who lives roughly 200 feet from the 8-court pickleball park. Pickleball's a racket sport like tennis, but played on smaller courts, with hard wood or fiberglass paddles and hard plastic balls that are similar to wiffle balls. A new pickleball ball, approved for use by the Select Board on July 13th, could offer a solution for the nonstop noise, said Barrows. The ball, introduced to the town by Barrows and Rob Mastriani, an opponent of neighborhood pickleball playing in Falmouth, is a brand of a quiet ball that they hope players will enjoy. The park has been a source of contention as Barrows and his neighbors have pushed to shut down the courts or reduce the hours due to the noise, which is created when the ball hits the paddle. "We just need the noise to stop," said Barrows. The courts were completed in 2018. They're open from 9 a.m. to 7:30 p.m., 7 days per week. The new ball, according to the company's website, costs roughly $150 for a package of 3 balls. Wow. Can a new ball curb the noise? The Select Board initially entered into executive session on July 13th to discuss Barrows' complaints and possible litigation coming from him, according to town manager Rodney Collins. At the time, Collins said Barrows had also asked the Select Board to consider reducing the court's hours to 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. on weekdays, and to close the courts on Sundays. During executive session, the Select Board also reviewed the NETX Vortex Ball, said Collins in a July 21st email to the Times. On July 21st, the town announced that the ball, which was designed by NETX or NetX 3D, a 3D printed advanced sport and lifestyle gear manufacturer, will be the only ball players can use at the Mashpee Pickleball Courts location effective August 1st. The introduction to the ball is a pilot program and will be discussed further during the Select Board meeting on July 27th, said Collins. The town, he said, is looking for a reasonable compromise. The ball, according to the town's announcement, is designed for low-noise performance with durable construction to withstand continuous and fast-paced play. Traditionally, players favor the Franklin X40. At the pickleball court July 16th, Kathy Bernier-Garzon said she would be willing to give the new ball a try. If it plays decently, yes, she said. I'd be happy to make those adjustments. The decision was posted to the town website and on social media, where opponents to the decision have complained about the price. Again, 3 balls cost $150. Others feel the decision is unfair. An 8-year battle, Barrows said he hopes the ball can put the 8-year battle between players and nearby neighbors to rest. Since the pickleball court broke ground in November of 2017, Barrows has spoken at Select Board meetings and at annual town meetings about the noise. According to him, the town never notified him that the courts would be built in his neighborhood. Barrows also alleges that the town, before the courts were built, didn't research how the noise would impact area families. The town pushed the park through without getting the proper authorization, said Barrows. It should have never been built in a residential zone, especially without the town doing their due diligence. In 2019, roughly 16 families who also live on Ashumet Road signed a petition asking the town to temporarily suspend play at the courts until the town could do something about the noise. The petition, said Barrows, was submitted to the Select Board at the time. In 2020, the town installed noise-reducing fence products on the chain-link fence that surrounds the courts on the north, east, and west sides, according to town documents. The noise cancellation curtains, said Barrows, have only amplified the sound. Also in 2020, the town had New England Soundproofing conduct noise measurements at the courts to determine the effectiveness of the fence barrier, according to town documents. The company also made recommendations to the town to further reduce noise from pickleball activity. At that time, the standard operating hours for the courts were from 8 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. In September 2023, Cross Spectrum Acoustics conducted a noise study on the town's behalf. In the report, the town said there was no detailed noise ordinance that includes decibel limits. Ambient noise recordings showed noise exceedances came from pickleball activity and also from helicopters and other continuous rotary engine or equipment coming from Otis Air National Guard Base, according to the report. Cross Spectrum Acoustics also recommended that the town raise the height of the sound muffler from 10 to 15 feet. The company also advised the town to add absorbing materials inside the court area and to expand the use of quieter pickleball equipment, including balls and paddles that produce softer sounds. Is the pickleball noise similar to PTSD? As Mastriani bounced the NetX Vortex ball on his paddle in Barrows' backyard on July 16th, he said the Franklin X40, in comparison, is designed to create a cult-like attraction to pickleball. It's called impulsive noise, said Mastriani, and a flight-or-fight response is triggered with every impulsive hit. Mastriani pointed to a 2025 study conducted by Kathleen Romido and Daniel Fink, available on the Acoustical Society of America website, which researched physical and psychological effects on nearby neighbors to pickleball courts. Research indicates, according to the study, that people who live near pickleball courts reported sleep disruptions, cardiac and neurological issues. Hearing phantom pops, according to the study, could be a phenomenon that represents changes in brain processing systems. The study was provided to the Times by Mastriani. On the other hand, Mastriani said he understands that the sport helps people socialize and brings people together. but there are a spectrum of indoor courts or courts located outside of residential neighborhoods where people can play. It's unfortunate that players can't see the suffering that's in the neighborhood, he said. Our next headline in the Cape Cod Times, Dooner drops amendment allowing Raynham slots by Emma Rindlisbacher of the Taunton Daily Gazette. Will Raynham Park get historical horse racing machines that critics say are de facto slot machines, thus allowing it to compete with Taunton's First Light Casino? Well, that depends on the outcome of a key state economic development bill. The House version of the proposed economic development legislation, which passed on July 8th, contains provisions that could allow Raynham Park to operate historical horse racing terminals, which are similar to slot machines but are technically based on the outcome of historical horse races. But the Senate version of the legislation, which passed in the early morning on Friday, July 24th, doesn't address horse races at all, after Taunton State Senator Kelly Dooner withdrew an amendment that would have paved the way for the machines at Raynham Park. Now the two versions of the legislation head to a conference committee, where members of the House and Senate will negotiate and produce a final bill. Since the negotiations haven't yet happened, the final bill could allow horse racing terminals, or it could maintain the status quo, wherein the machines are not operated in Massachusetts. The Mashpee Wampanoag tribe, which operates the First Light Casino in Taunton, called horse racing terminals an existential threat to the casino. Here's what we know. Taunton's senator and city council were at odds over gaming machines. Are they still? Dooner, a Taunton Republican, represents both Taunton, home of the First Light Casino, and Raynham, home of Raynham Park. Dooner had proposed an amendment number 584 to the Senate Economic Development Bill that would allow Raynham Park to have horse racing machines at the expense of causing what Tribal Chairman Brian Whedon referred to as an existential threat to the First Light Casino. After Dooner initially proposed amendment number 584, the amendment was withdrawn. It's not immediately clear why the amendment was withdrawn. A spokesperson for Dooner did not immediately respond to a request for comment on Friday. Previously, before Dooner's amendment was withdrawn, a Dooner spokesperson told the Gazette that both Raynham Park and the First Light Casino could be successful. While we greatly respect the concerns of the tribe, we believe there's room for thoughtful progress and a range of opportunities within every community, the spokesperson said. This proposal, allowing horse racing machines, originated in the House, the spokesperson said, referring to the House version of the legislation, which the House voted on and passed before the Senate. Senator Dooner has filed a different version to help better support the local community and to ensure that jobs created will be local. Her amendment put her not only at odds with the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe who owns the First Light Casino, but also with the Taunton City Council. At the City Council's Tuesday, July 22, 2026 meeting, the Council voted to support a resolution calling for the Senate to pass an amendment prohibiting the historical horse race machines that Dooner's amendment would have allowed at Raynham Park. The amendment banning the machines, Amendment number 234, was ultimately rejected by the Senate on Thursday, July 23rd. Ultimately, the Senate legislation does not discuss horse racing machines, putting the legislation at odds with the House version of the legislation, which contains provisions allowing their use. What would happen if Raynham Park gained horse racing machines? A representative of Genting, the company that's financially backed the First Light Casino project in Taunton, spoke at the City Council meeting on Tuesday about the impact of allowing Raynham Park to have horse racing machines. Kevin Jones, a Genting employee who described the company as the longtime investor, partner, and friend of the tribe, said that competition from Raynham Park would prevent the First Light Casino from attracting further investment. The tribe is seeking investment to build a permanent casino building structure. Currently, the First Light Casino consists of temporary trailers. Jones said that Genting could not finance a larger casino project if there was competition from Raynham Park. As their financier, we would not finance that, because how do you price the risk? Jones said. All of a sudden, tomorrow you're out of business because somebody is cannibalizing everything you do. The next headline in the Times of Monday, July 27th, "One Dead in Falmouth House Fire" by Rachel Devaney in East Falmouth. A man died in an early morning fire in a Red Brook Road home, according to town and state fire officials. Firefighters finally cleared the property at 15 Red Brook Road after 11 a.m. on Friday, at which point the road was reopened. A neighbor called in the fire at about 6:30 a.m., according to fire officials. Yellow caution tape kept bystanders away from the small shingled house, and thick smears of smudged smoke remained outside the front door and along a broken and blackened front window. On arrival, firefighters found heavy fire showing from the rear of the building and heavy smoke from the front door, according to a statement released by Jake Wark, Public Information Officer for the State Department of Fire Services. The man was removed from the home, and first responders attempted to revive him, according to the statement. The man, who was in his 70s, according to the press release, was declared dead at the scene. An investigation of the fire and the cause of death of the man is ongoing. And the final story on the front page of today's Cape Cod Times: teenager's death is more than just a mystery. Wells's case in Mississippi raises unhealed history, by Endea Yancey Brigg. When Mississippi teenager Nolan Wells disappeared after a 4th of July boat trip, questions immediately began to swirl about what happened to him and why. 3 weeks after his body was found, many of those questions remain unanswered. Parallel investigations into his death have revealed little publicly so far. Wells's family fears his death will be written off as an accidental drowning, citing conflicting witness accounts and unusual cell phone activity. The mysterious death has attracted speculation from the public nationwide and attention from major true crime figures like Nancy Grace. But the death of a young black man, after an outing with a predominantly white group of friends, has also dredged up fears among black Americans that they aren't safe in such environments, and that the justice system won't handle their cases properly if something goes wrong, according to Nadine Smith, president and CEO of online civil rights organization Color of Change. Wells' family has launched their own independent investigation, citing a lack of trust in law enforcement in a state with a long history of racist violence. Officials in Jackson County, Mississippi, have said they have not found signs of foul play, but they're continuing to investigate. There are two stories unfolding here. One is the mystery of what happened to him, and the other is that it has surfaced in the American consciousness, especially among black Americans, some familiar anxieties, Smith said. It's really a story of the unhealed history and lived pattern recognition in black America. Officials say Wells traveled with friends to Horn Island, about 10 miles off the coast of Mississippi, to celebrate the 4th of July. According to the National Park Service, the island is only accessible via private boat, and there's no staff, drinking water, shelter, facilities, or communication on the island. GPS data obtained by CBS News from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources showed that the boat reportedly arrived around 11:14 a.m. and left at 4:31 p.m. Family attorney Ben Crump has said Wells's friends reported they last saw him around 3 p.m. Christine Wansley, Wells's mother, said a friend of Wells contacted her around 11 p.m. that night, setting off a frantic search. Wansley said the family met with law enforcement around midnight and were eventually able to track down Wells's phone and his car, which were at different locations. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office led a land and water search on July 5th and 6th, assisted by the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, National Park Service employees, the United Cajun Navy, and other volunteers. The search ended July 6th after the United Cajun Navy announced a body was discovered on the northwest end of the island, and that body was later identified as Wells. An independent autopsy, which was conducted by forensic pathologist Dr. Roger Mitchell, couldn't determine the cause or manner of Wells's death, Crump announced July 22nd. Bailey C. Martin, a spokesperson for the Mississippi Department of Public Safety, confirmed in a July 22nd statement to USA Today that the state medical examiner completed an initial autopsy on Wells on July 7th at 8:30 a.m., and the investigation is active and ongoing. Crump said there were glaring contradictions in the accounts given by the last people to see Wells alive. The people Wells arrived with said he was talking to a young woman, chose to stay behind, and planned to ride back with someone else, according to officials. The young woman says that he went and got back on the boat with the boys, Crump said. The boys say no, he was going to stay with her, and that's a conflict. The family and their supporters have said the notion that Wells chose to stay behind on the island without his cell phone or keys doesn't make sense. Crump also questioned how Wells, who knew how to swim, could have drowned without anyone seeing him struggling. Jackson County Coroner Bruce Lind told CNN the currents can be strong on the barrier islands, and there have been drownings many times over the years. Experts have said drowning can be fast, silent, and look different than one might expect. It is very, very easy to drown and have nobody recognize that, said Andrea Zafaris, a medico-legal death investigator who trains law enforcement on aquatic death and homicide investigations. Zafaris said there are three major questions investigators need to answer when a body is found in or near water. Does it make sense the body was found in that water at that time? Does the location, position, posture, and state of the victim and the people who reported the death make sense? And does it make sense the victim is dead? Too often, she said, uncovering what really happened when a person dies in these circumstances becomes incredibly challenging because everybody has the opportunity to make assumptions that cause of death is drowning. Though it's not yet clear what happened to Wells, Smith said the circumstances surrounding his death shed a spotlight on the common experience of being the only black person in a predominantly white group. Smith, who grew up in the Florida Panhandle, recalled her own experience being one of just two black girls on her high school softball team. She said the dynamic can be not only isolating, but dangerous. You can't think about these stories without thinking about the things that our parents taught us, that we've taught our children, Smith said. Even in the most integrated communities, you can't do what your white friends do. You can't go all of the places they can go without being very vigilant about your safety, because it's been true in our lives. The Reverend Al Sharpton has said advocates are not definitely or definitively linking Wells's death to racism, but they're not discounting it as a factor yet either. So to tell us don't rush to judgment saying it was racist is fine. But then I'm telling you, don't rush to judgment saying it was not racism, because we do not know, Sharpton said. From the Cape and Islands section, as we keep it local here at the Ledger, former Bourne Health Board chair's lawsuit is dismissed after a settlement, by Susan Vaughn. The lawyer for a former Bourne Health Board member who sued three top town officials alleging they spied on him said his client is satisfied with a settlement that ended the case. Former Board of Health Chair Stanley Andrews initially filed the lawsuit on July 31st of 2023 against Town Administrator Marlene McCollum, Human Resources Director Elise Zarcaro, and Select Board member Peter J. Mayer, who was board chair at the time. Andrews claimed the officials conspired in a plan to spy on and surreptitiously record him in a private meeting with McCollum on January 11th of 2023, involving his request for legal services. On July 8th in Barnstable Superior Court, Andrews, McCollum, Zarcaro, and Mayer filed a document stipulating that all agreed to dismiss the case with prejudice and without interest, costs, expenses, or attorney fees to any party. They also waived right of appeal, the court record stated. At the same time, Andrews' attorney, Thomas Wynn, in a July 21st phone call said his client was very satisfied with the settlement. Asked by the Times how much money was involved, Wynn said he couldn't divulge the amount. We made every effort to mediate after years of litigation, discovery, and reports obtained, Wynn said. The court tried to get it resolved. He stressed that Andrews didn't sue the town, but the 3 officials as private citizens. And what were the allegations? Andrews' allegations include illegal use of an electronic device by a private person under state law, interfering with his right to privacy, and conspiracy to spy for political purposes, quote unquote. Andrews claimed that Zarcaro illegally recorded the meeting with her cell phone while sitting near a cracked open door from an adjoining darkened office. All the defendants who had legal representation challenged Andrews' claims. As a witness to the incident, town custodian Matthew Rose initially reported to Mayer that he saw Zarcaro using her cell phone in the room when he entered to empty the trash, and she waved at him to go away and be quiet. Mayer allegedly investigated the incident but took no action, Andrews alleges in the court record. Mary Jane Mastrangelo, who replaced Mayer as Select Board Chair that May, and Select Board member Melissa Ferretti told The Times in August of 2023 that Mayer never gave Rose's statement to the entire board at the time of the alleged incident. McCollum subsequently suspended Rose without pay for 15 days suspension for not following official town procedure in reporting alleged governmental infractions, according to previous reporting by the Cape Cod Times. During a Bourne police investigation of the incident in July of 2023, McCollum said Mayer directed her several times to have someone listen to the January 11th meeting with Andrews. In the police report, McCollum also said there were contentious issues between Andrews and a town employee, which was the reason Mayer directed her about the listening. The town employee was not named in the police or court record. Part of the case also hinged on the fact that Zarcaro traded in her personal cell phone that she allegedly used to record the meeting shortly after Andrews' lawyer advised her not to destroy it, according to the court accounts. The phone was then not available as evidence. The lawsuit concluded that McCollum and Mayer directed Zarcaro to secretly record the January 11th meeting without his consent, and that they intended to use the information from the meeting for political purposes. The case didn't specify what those political purposes were. As a result of the incident, Andrews resigned from the Board of Health as well as several other town committees about a month after the incident. The court record stated he had been active on town committees since 2008, had participated in town meetings, and served the community his entire life, and had lost his sense of community in Bourne. Defendants Zarcaro and Mayer did not return calls for comments on the settlement, and McCollum was not available. Their attorney, Cole Fahrenkopf, also was not available for comment to return calls and email. Town Council Brian Bertram said he could not comment on the case. The other story in the Cape and Islands section of today's Cape Cod Times, it's July 27th, a Monday. West Nile positive mosquitoes are detected in Falmouth and Barnstable by Heather McCarran. State health authorities have confirmed the first West Nile virus positive mosquito samples of the 2026 season on Cape Cod, with infected mosquitoes trapped in both Falmouth and Barnstable, according to local health officials. The Massachusetts Department of Public Health notified Falmouth officials that a mosquito sample collected July 21st near Siders Pond contained mosquitoes that tested positive for West Nile virus. In Barnstable, town officials said a sample of 15 mosquitoes collected in Cotuit on July 21st also tested positive for the virus. No human cases of West Nile virus have been reported in either town or anywhere else in the state. The Cape Cod risk level remains low, according to the DPH. The Cape Cod Mosquito Control Project regularly collects mosquito samples from various locations in each town as part of the state's monitoring program for mosquito-borne diseases. In an alert issued July 23rd, Falmouth Health Agent Scott McGann said the area near Siders Pond is routinely treated and will remain a focus of mosquito control efforts throughout the season. In his own advisory on July 23rd, Barnstable Health Division Director Thomas McKean said Barnstable County mosquito control crews on July 23rd and 24th were scheduled to treat catch basins and containers holding water near where Barnstable's positive sample was collected. Statewide, 35 mosquito samples have tested positive for West Nile virus so far, according to the DPH. The first was recorded in June in Berkshire County. Most of the state remains at low risk, but a number of towns are at moderate risk as of July 23rd. Boston, Brookline, Cambridge, Marlborough, Newton, Northborough, Shrewsbury, Somerville, Southborough, and Worcester. Mosquito season in Massachusetts runs from late spring through early fall. On Cape Cod, mosquitoes start becoming active in May and are at their busiest in July and August. As temperatures cool in the fall, mosquito numbers begin to drop. What is West Nile virus? West Nile virus mainly spreads through bites from infected mosquitoes. The illness often has no symptoms or shows up in mild forms, but it can occasionally lead to more serious health complications, especially in people over age 50 and those with weakened immune systems, according to the state. Last year, 8,788 mosquito samples statewide were tested for West Nile virus, with 451 testing positive, including at least 7 on Cape Cod. 6 confirmed human cases were recorded during the season elsewhere in the state. In 2024, 19 human cases were recorded, at least one of which was traced to exposure in Barnstable County. Certain animals, especially birds and horses, can also get sick. Wild birds like crows and jays are especially vulnerable, according to the state. Horses can develop serious illness if infected, but vaccines are available. Pets like dogs and cats are rarely infected, but it's still a good idea to keep them indoors during peak mosquito hours and remove standing water around your home. Mosquitoes that potentially carry West Nile virus are active at dusk and after dark, the Cape Cod Mosquito Control Project notes on its website, so precautions should be taken to avoid mosquitoes at these times. The species that transmit the disease, according to the DPH, prefer to lay their eggs in man-made containers like tires, tarps, gutters, and children's toys that hold water after it rains. The public can reduce the mosquito population by emptying standing water on their property. Other precautions include using bug spray with DEET, picaridin, or other EPA-approved ingredients. Follow the label instructions. Note that DEET is not recommended for infants under 2 months of age, and oil of lemon eucalyptus should not be used on children under age 3. Additionally, permethrin products are intended for treating clothing and gear, not skin. Wear long sleeves and pants when you're outside, especially around dawn or dusk when mosquitoes are most active. Fix window and door screens to keep mosquitoes out of your home. For continuous updates on mosquito-borne illnesses and more information about prevention, visit the Mass Department of Public Health mosquito information page at mass.gov/DPH/MOSQUITO. We are just past the midway portion of our reading, and regular listeners, I'm sure, are aware that it's at this stage that we move to a different kind of local news, which are the obituaries, death notices, and memorials that are listed in that day's paper. And in the Cape Cod Times of July 27th, a Monday, the first obituary is of Joan Leroy Wolfel of Harwichport, who passed peacefully on Sunday, July 19th, at the age of 90. Joan was born in her family home on Arbor Way Drive in Braintree, Massachusetts, September 23, 1935. She attended Braintree schools and graduated from Braintree High School in 1954. She went to beauty school in Boston. After school, she took a job with Doris Clapp as a hairdresser in Harwichport, an entrepreneur and artist that Joan greatly admired. On September 7, 1958, Joan married Francis Bud Wolfel, the love of her life for 67 years. The couple then split time between Long Island, New York, where husband Bud was a teacher, and Cape Cod, where he pursued a plumbing career. In 1964, Bud took a teaching job at Dennis Yarmouth Regional High School, and they moved to Cape Cod permanently. From the time Joan married, she supported Bud's careers while raising 2 boys and keeping a home. In 1985, Joan became a resident of St. Croix in the Virgin Islands and summered on the Cape. She and Bud traveled the world extensively and loved to go on cruises. Joan was extremely dedicated to her husband, and they had a very full life together. She is survived by many family and friends. A special thank you goes out to the staff at hospice and the wonderful staff at Rosewood Manor, who took excellent care of Joan for the last 4 months of her life. A private burial ceremony will be held at Mount Pleasant Cemetery, 95 South Street in Harwichport, at 1 p.m. on Thursday, July 30th of 2026. In lieu of flowers, donations can be made to Joan's favorite charity, St. Jude's Hospital. Our next obituary is of James P. Mackey III of Orleans, who passed in his sleep on Cape Cod July 17th. His 41-year career in Washington, D.C. focused on national security. He was a recognized expert who made this country safer every day behind the scenes as a dedicated career civil servant, whose persistence, thoroughness, and interpersonal tools allowed him to collate information among various intelligence agencies and other contacts to prepare daily threat analysis for the National Counterterrorism Center, which was passed to the highest levels of government daily. Whether it was during 9/11 in the bunker with Dick Cheney, or after his retirement on Cape Cod where he fielded calls during Hurricane Katrina, he served his country with distinction. As a naval officer on the USS Navarro, director of research for the Army Times, editor of the first catalog of federal domestic assistance for OMB, the Office of Management and Budget, consultant to the government with Lawrence Leader, security and intelligence analyst for the Department of Energy's Office of International Relations and Emergency Preparedness, and FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, supervisory intelligence officer at FBI Headquarters Strategic Information Operations Center, known as SIOC, and the Global Command and Communications Center, NCTC. While at Homeland Security, he excelled in what he did because his work made a difference. After retirement, he and his wife of 63 years, Dorothy Mackey, designed, built, and moved to their waterfront dream home on Little Pleasant Bay in Orleans, Mass. When not traveling to one of the 70 countries they visited together, or visiting with their 2 sons, James P. Mackey IV in Phuket, Thailand, and Timothy J. Mackey, M.D. in Sparta, New Jersey, or one of their 5 grandchildren, Jim enjoyed sailing, reading, and many friends. Adopted, the only child of James Mackey Jr. and Marie Mackey, Jim graduated Boston College High School in 1955, College of the Holy Cross in 1959, Georgetown University in 1967, with 3 master's degrees in Government and International Relations, Strategic and National Security, and Business Administration, and the U.S. Naval War College in 1990. A funeral mass will be at St. Joan of Arc Church in Orleans, October 3rd, 11 a.m., with celebration of life to follow at the Orleans Yacht Club. Interment will be on October 5th at Holy Hood Cemetery in Chestnut Hill. In lieu of flowers, please make donations to BC High at bchigh.edu/give or mailed to BC High, 150 Morrissey Boulevard, Boston, Mass. 02125. The next obituary in today's Cape Cod Times is of Antoinette Tony Fallon of Weston. Antoinette Tony, née Mayor, Fallon of Weston, Massachusetts, Osterville, Massachusetts, and Roslindale, Massachusetts, passed away peacefully at her home in Osterville on Cape Cod, July 20th, 1 day shy of her 98th birthday. Born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on July 21st of 1928, Tony grew up in Bridgeville, Pennsylvania. She attended Miss Porter's School in Farmington, Connecticut, and later Pine Manor Junior College. A gifted singer from an early age, Tony's love of music remained a lifelong passion. She performed with local vocal groups, appeared in Gilbert and Sullivan operettas, and participated in community theater productions in Weston, Massachusetts. On June 4th, 1949, Tony married John Jack Fallon at St. Paul's Cathedral in Pittsburgh. Together, they built a life centered on family, adventure, and cherished traditions. Winters were spent skiing with their children, summers devoted to Cape Cod, where they enjoyed sailing, entertaining, and making memories with family and friends. Tony was known for her generous heart, philanthropic spirit, and remarkable hospitality. She had a gift for bringing people together and delighted in opening her home to family, friends, neighbors, and guests, always making everyone feel welcome. Above all, Tony was a devoted and loving mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. She believed in giving her family every opportunity to learn, grow, and pursue their passions and took immense joy in celebrating their accomplishments. She treasured preserving family memories, documenting generations of milestones through photographs, home videos, and albums that will be cherished for years to come. Tony was predeceased by her beloved husband Jack in 2001. She is survived by many family and friends. Her warmth, grace, generosity, beautiful singing voice, and unwavering love for her family will be deeply missed and forever remembered. The services will be private. In lieu of flowers, any donations in Tony's memory may be made to V&A Hospice, 25 Communication Way in Hyannis, Mass. 02601. The next obituary is of Maura Beth Euskaidis of Yarmouth, who at the age of 68 passed peacefully Wednesday, June 24th, surrounded by the love of her family. Beth was preceded in death by her beloved parents and her brother. She leaves behind her devoted husband, Luke Euskaidis, whose love and companionship were the foundation of their life together. She is also survived by her loving children. Beth is survived by many family and friends and will be remembered for her kind-spirited heart, gentle nature, and unwavering love for her family and friends. A celebration of Beth's life will be held on Wednesday, July 29th at 11 a.m. at Corpus Christi Church, 324 Quaker Meeting House Road in East Sandwich. Burial will be private. The family extends their heartfelt gratitude to everyone who has offered love, support, and prayers during this difficult time. And the final obituaries of Gregory Jude Worgan of Barnstable, longtime resident of Cape Cod, who passed on July 11th. Greg is survived by his former wife, Melissa, and many family and friends. He worked at Lambert's and will be remembered as a scratch golfer and a master carpenter. Services will be held at the convenience of the family. And that concludes the obituaries and death notices that are listed in today's Cape Cod Times of July 27th. Keeping it local, we'll move to the Cape Cod Baseball League Saturday Roundup. Playoff and divisional races tighten up. This is written by Alan Gunn. After it appeared like an out-and-out one-horse race for the Cape Cod Baseball League's East Division, the Brewster Whitecaps, 23-8-3, have closed the gap to the Yarmouth Dennis Red Sox, who are 25-7-1, to just one game. Holden Pantier of Walter State Community College went just 1 for 3, but tallied 2 RBIs via a single and a sacrifice bunt to help power Brewster to a 5-1 win over Yarmouth Dennis at Red Wilson Field on Saturday. Brewster needed only 8 hits and 4 walks to record 5 runs, 2 of which were earned runs. A majority of those came off of the Yarmouth Dennis relief pitcher, Brody DeLamelliere of Florida State, drove in 1 run, while the other was on a fielding error. Blaine Brown of Tennessee made his second appearance and first start and pitched 2 scoreless innings and hitless innings with 5 strikeouts for Brewster. Zach Kamatz of Oregon State, one of the league's top relievers, allowed 2 hits and a run across 4 innings. Noah Thigpen of Troy gave up 0 hits and 2 walks in 3 innings. Jace Tharnish of Kentucky singled to give Yarmouth Dennis its only lead of the game at 1-0 in the 4th inning before Brewster scored 5 unanswered runs after breaking the shutout in the 6th inning. Brewster, which is a league best 8-1-1 across the last 10 games, had opportunities to add to the lead, but went 2 for 9 with runners in scoring position and stranded 6. Brock Kettleson put put Yarmouth Dennis in a strong position after he pitched 2 hit and scoreless innings, but 5 2-hit and scoreless innings, but the bullpen couldn't maintain the momentum. In other Cape Cod Baseball League action, it was the Harwich Mariners 5, the Cotuit Kettleers 4. Harwich, which is 18-16, can breathe a sigh of relief after ending a 6-game losing streak with a dramatic come-from-behind win over Cotuit, who are 11-20-2. Cotuit scored all 4 of its runs across the second and third innings as Isaac Sturgis of Michigan State went 2 for 4 with 1 RBI. He helped push runs across on a bunt and a single. That came either side of Tito Kiefer Espinoza of St. Leo grounding into a double play that scored a run, and a Sam Christensen of Alabama RBI double. Christensen finished 1 for 3 with a walk, RBI, and 2 runs. Brady Bendick of the U.S. Naval Academy then came on in relief for Harwich and shut Cotuit down across 4 innings. He struck out 6 batters against 1 hit and 1 walk. Luke Morgan of Oregon picked up the win after 2 1/3 1-hit innings. Harwich pieced together a 3-run 6th inning behind a balk, a ground out, and a stolen home base to pull within 4-3. Sean O'Leary of UMass Lowell tied the game in a pinch hit scenario on his only plate appearance. The comeback win was completed when Harwich drew another bases-loaded balk to break a 4-4 tie in the bottom of the 9th inning. Ty Smolinski of Kansas State went 2 for 3 with 2 walks and scored twice, while Micah Rienstra-Kirikov of Kent State scored a run and was also 2 for 3 for Harwich. It was the Wareham Gatemen 14, the Falmouth Commodores 3, a final after 7. Wareham, 11-22, ended a 3-game slide in emphatic fashion and took advantage of Cotuit's loss to pull within a game of the final playoff spot on the West Division. It ended Falmouth's 4-game win streak in the process. A bases-loaded walk sparked a 10-run third inning for Wareham, which went from holding a 3-0 lead to a 13-0 advantage. 4 singles plated 6 runs. A wild pitch scored another, and Cooper Tarantino of Northeastern doubled to drive in 2 more runs. Wareham needed just 9 runs and 9 walks to do its damage as it went 6 for 11 with runners in scoring position. Henry DiGiorgio of Northeastern, who was the only gateman with a multi-hit game, went 3 for 4 with 4 RBIs and a run. Cohen Nicolai of Arizona State, Carter Groen of LaSalle, and A.J. Ashatino of Northeastern all scored twice for Wareham, while Dylan Dubovic of Miami and Connor Cuff of Louisiana Lafayette tallied 2 RBIs and scored a run each. Gavin Griegers out of Bryant single drove in a run, and the other was scored on a throwing error on the same play for Falmouth, who was 15-17-2. 5 different Wareham pitchers limited Falmouth to 4 hits and 5 walks, while they struck out 8. It was the Bourne Braves 6, Hyannis Harbor Hawks 4. Bourne, who's 18-12-3, consolidated its position atop the West Division standings as it beat its nearest rival on the back of 6-run 5th inning. Blake Schaff of Wake Forest and Rustin Rigdon of Vanderbilt both signaled to tie the game at 2-2, while Burke Lee Mabius reached on a fielder's choice that pushed another run across to break the deadlock. Justin Osterhaus of Alabama recorded an RBI on a sacrifice fly, and Austin Hawk of Wake Forest made it 6-2 on a 2 RBI single. Hawk with 2 RBIs and Rigdon with an RBI each went 2 for 4 for Bourne. Hyannis, 15-17, struggled to put bat to ball with just 4 hits while it did draw 6 walks. It went 1 for 9 with runners in scoring position and stranded 10. Noah Scott of Oregon State pitched 4 2/3 innings and allowed 4 hits, 2 walks, and 2 runs, none earned, and improved to a 2-2 record. He struck out 4 batters. Hyannis cut the deficit to 6-4 on a fielding error that scored 2 runs, but it pulled no closer. And the final game reported is Chatham Anglers 12, the Orleans Firebirds 4. Bino Waters of Notre Dame and Louisiana State, Armani Guzman of West Virginia, and Tyler Howe of North Carolina tallied 2 RBIs each to power Chatham, who was 13, 17, and 3 to a second straight win. Waters was 2 for 4 with a walk and a run. Guzman was 2 for 6, and Howe was 1 for 4 with a walk and a run. Harlan Hovader of Meridian Community College in Mississippi State scored 3 times and went 4 for 6. Chatham, which never trailed, plated 3 runs in the first inning before building a 6-2 lead after 5 innings. That advantage ballooned as the Anglers had a 6-run 6th inning that was sparked by Cameron Pruitt of Lipscomb. He was 2 for 4 with 2 walks, an RBI, and 2 runs. Angel Cervantes of UCLA pitched 5 strong innings, giving up 2 hits, 0 walks, and 2 runs, both earned. Tyler Maillat of Tennessee hit a league-leading 7th home run, while Dominic Cadiz of UCLA also went yard for Orleans, which is 10-23 on the season. We've completed the local news. We'll move on to some of the national news. CVS begins filling pet prescriptions by Bailey Allen of the USA Today Network in New England. Your next CVS run could involve picking up medications for your puppy alongside your own prescriptions. In a July 21st announcement, CVS said its pharmacies would begin filling prescriptions for select pet medications, including antibiotics, allergy medications, flea and tick control, insulin, and pain relievers. The Woonsocket-based company said the service is now available for dogs and cats at all 9,000 stores nationwide. With the addition of pet medication dispensing, CVS Pharmacy can now serve every member of the family, said Sid Tenety, Senior Vice President and Interim President of Pharmacy and Consumer Wellness at CVS Health. The pharmacy giant joins other major chains, including Walmart and Walgreens, in the pet prescription medication market. CVS also said it recently added pet essentials from several brands, including Milk-Bone, Greenies, Churu, Savory Prime, and Temptations, to its store shelves. Here's what to know about filling pet prescriptions at your local CVS. Pet owners who want to have their pet's prescription filled at CVS can either bring a written prescription to the pharmacy or ask their veterinarian to contact CVS directly, the company said. Once CVS receives the prescription, the owner can then choose to pick up the medication in-store or have it delivered if eligible. Customers can also add their pets to their CVS.com profile and manage eligible pet prescriptions through the CVS Health app, the company said. The pharmacy said it expects to be able to accept electronic prescriptions for pet medications starting later this year. And which pet medications are available at CVS? Select prescription medications for dogs and cats are available, the company said, including the following. For allergic dermatitis, Apoquel and Zenrelia. For an antibiotic, enrofloxacin or Baytril. An anticonvulsant, levetiracetam ER, and levetiracetam and zonisamide. Anti-inflammatory and pain relief, meloxicam, ferrocoxib, carprofen, daracoxib, and Galiprant, Deramax, Rimadyl, Previcox, and Metacam. And there are many, 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 many more listed, and they're all the official names and not any generic names, so I'm not going to read through them. They're a nightmare to read. But what they will offer, I'll just go down this list: allergic dermatitis, antibiotic medication, anticonvulsant medication, anti-inflammatory and pain relief medication, anxiolytic and behavior modification, cardiovascular medication, diabetes medication, flea and tick medication, heartworm prevention, external and internal parasite control, heartworm prevention, internal parasite control medication, and other medications like prednisone, ursodiol, and maropitant citrate known as Serenia. And that was not easy to read, folks. We'll move to the advice column. We've completed all the local news. We've actually read every article that's in this paper except for the extra situation that they slide in at the very end. And that's all international news. Stuff you would have heard already. So, we'll move to the advice column. Ask Carolyn. Carolyn Hacks. Tell in-law with memory issues she forgot her grandkids' birthdays? Dear Carolyn, my mother-in-law is a sweet, quiet woman who's begun to have some memory issues. We live far from her and we see her once or twice a year. For the last 2 years, she's forgotten my twin sons' birthdays. They're 10. My kids don't need gifts, but it makes me sad that they don't even hear from her. I know if she realized she had forgotten, she'd be sad and embarrassed. Should I say anything to her or just let it lie? And it's signed, Forgotten. Well, dear Forgotten, contact her before the birthday every year and before every other milestone she would want to mark to help, quote-unquote, her figure out what they'd like, quote-unquote. Obviously, it's a memory prompt and an excuse to check in. It's the kind thing for all involved. If she's already missed it this year, then sure, let it lie, because you're the one who's sad, right? If the boys are sad, then put them in touch with their grandmother, but regularly, not just for their birthdays. Because really, who cares about a birthday? The point is for them to have a relationship with their grandmother, isn't it? The issue here is not where's the once-a-year perfunctory contact form my children on an arbitrary day, but how can I make sure this sweet, quiet woman who raised my spouse and now lives far away isn't completely detached from her child's family as she slips into memory loss? If she's the one holding herself apart, then I'll merge safely back into my lane. But the sad and embarrassed prediction says she does care, and nothing about the letter suggests her relationship with the spouse is broken. Another response. Dear Forgotten, if this is a woman who always remembered without fail, then take it as a warning sign that things will degrade from here. Take it from someone who's gone through this with 2 beloved family members within the last couple of years. Assuming this relationship is important, not just to your kids, but to you and your spouse, make more time for it. Increase contact. Increase visits. Make memories while you can. Dear Anonymous, yes, thanks. I don't think there's an if, though. There are signs of memory loss, so that is the warning sign that things will degrade from here. Unless the spouse intends to have zero involvement in the mother's care plans and her well-being, that would be pretty unusual. This couple needs to look down that road now and start preparing. Some other readers' thoughts. You can facilitate your kids reaching out to their grandmother on their birthday too. It wasn't until I became a mother myself that I fully realized my birthday was actually a pretty big day for my mom. I mean, she did a lot of work that day, and I don't even remember it. So, if Grandma forgets to call, go ahead and call her. Be warm and wonderful, and do a video call if she can work that technology. Hi, Nana. It's Sally's birthday. We wanted to say we love you on this special day. No reason to put the pressure on your mother-in-law in cognitive decline to do something you can easily do with the exact same result. And with that very good advice, we come to the end of our reading of the Cape Cod Times for today, Monday, July 27th of 2026. This is your reader, Eric, saying be well, be safe, look after each other, and remember our veterans, especially those we lost recently. Thank you for your service. Bye for now.